Hello and welcome to Press Grapes. My name is Joseph and this is a wine channel dedicated to anything related to wine, with the main aim to try and help you enjoy quality wine at a reasonable price. The first video I'd like to make is one all about wine auctions, because I think they are a great place to buy quality wine at a reasonable price. I'm going to give you 3 reasons why I think you should buy wine at an auction, but I'll also give you 3 reasons why wine auctions may not be for you. So to start off with the pros, the 3 pros that I'd like to talk about, the first one is to grab a deal, the second is to buy older, well-matured wines, and the third is the ability to try and pick up rarer and interesting wines that you may not find on the open market. So the first pro, to grab a deal. I think a good reason to go to any auction of any type is to try and grab a deal and pay less than market value for an item. And wine auctions are no different. That's not to say that every lot will be a good deal, but if you do your homework and research prior to an auction and bid wisely, there are plenty of deals to be had. Take for instance some wine I bought at a recent auction from J. Stracker and Chadwick. It's an auction house in South Wales. The particular lot had a few bottles of Amon-Ra and a few bottles of Rockford Basket Press. These are 2 of my favourite wines. Amon-Ra is a big Shiraz made by well-regarded winemaker Ben Glaetzer, and Rockford Basket Press is an iconic handmade Shiraz by one of the most well-renowned boutique wineries in Australia. And so Amon-Ra from 2012 will cost roughly around £60 per bottle in a typical wine shop. And Rockford Basket Press, the older vintages, if you can find them in a shop, from 2008 will cost you around £100 a bottle, and from 2009 will cost roughly £150 a bottle. And the total market value for this lot was around £750, £770. I managed to win the lot for £350, a massive saving of over 50%. So the second pro is the ability to buy older and well-matured wines. And not all wine is going to improve with age, but the right wines with the right structure and balance have the ability to improve over time and develop complex flavours and a smoothness which young wines just do not have. A big reason for this is tannins and acidity. So tannins are found in the stems, skins and seeds of grapes. They're found in all wines, but in much higher concentrations in red wines. Tannins give the wine its dry texture and that mouth-drying feeling when you drink a wine. They are a natural antioxidant and they protect the wine from bacteria, allowing it to age successfully. Tannins in young wines can cause a wine to taste astringent or bitter, but over time these tannins will mellow and smooth out, revealing a complexity of flavour and revealing a smooth and elegant wine. Even in the best wine retailers, you're going to struggle to find wine that is older than 5 or 10 years old. The majority of wine sold at auction is often overflow from cellars across the country. And as I've mentioned, wine does improve with time if it's the correct type of wine. However, this is only up to a point, and all wines will have an optimum drinking window. And as collectors of any type of thing do, they often buy more than they're able to consume. And so if they have an excess of stock that is coming to the end of its drinking window, which they're unable to consume, they'll often try and sell it. And the easiest way to do that is at a wine auction. They often sell their wine to try and make room for more wine, as is often the way. Other times, wine has been purchased in its youth and it has appreciated so much in value that the person who owns the wine would rather have the money than open the bottle. Whatever the reason for people selling wine, there is absolutely no shortage of well-matured and cellared wines at an auction. The third reason to go to a wine auction is to try and pick up rare and interesting wines. Certain wines are produced in such small numbers that it's very difficult to find them in the open market or in a traditional wine shop. For instance, one of the wines that I enjoy is from a winery called Noon in South Australia. They typically produce 2,000 to 3,000 cases of wine per year. To put this in context, some of the big wine producers in the world, such as Campo Viejo or Yellowtail, will produce around 2 million cases of wine per year. So Noon produces a lot of different wines. One of my favourites they produce is their Reserve Shiraz, which has gained international acclaim, and wine critics such as Robert Parker have given it a score of 97 or 98 in most vintages. In McLaren Vale, where Noon Winery is based, everything sells out within a few weeks of their release date in November. And trying to find Noon wine in the UK, where I'm based, is virtually impossible. However, thankfully, I kept my eye out at a wine auction about a year ago. I managed to pick up a case of Noon, including their well-respected Reserve Shiraz. And outside of queuing up outside the Noon Winery on the release day in November in McLaren Vale, this would otherwise just be impossible. So I've given you 3 reasons why I think you should buy wine at an auction. Now I'm going to give you 3 reasons why they may not be for you. The first of these is you're not able to confirm the provenance or how the wine has been stored. Secondly, the possibility for fake or counterfeit wine. And third, if you don't particularly enjoy medium to full-bodied, well-matured wines. So the first of those, wine storage. This is a big topic and I'll go into more detail in a later video. But essentially at an auction or buying from anywhere, there's no way to guarantee the conditions a wine has been stored in before you purchase it. And essentially, for wine to be stored correctly, allowing it to age successfully, conditions need to be right. This includes away from direct sunlight, good humidity, and held at a constant temperature. If temperatures go above, say, 28 degrees centigrade, it can damage the wine itself. It can also damage the cork, leading it to lose some of its integrity and lead to excessive oxidation. Essentially, this can turn a top-of-the-range wine into vinegar. And when you're buying wine at an auction, there's no way to 100% guarantee the conditions that a wine has been stored in prior to your purchase. There are some clues from the bottle, the level of the wine in the bottle, and from the auction catalogue itself. But even taking all those into account, you just can't guarantee how it's been stored. And unlike in a wine shop, if you buy a wine at a wine shop, you take it home and it's dud or gone off, you take it back, they'll be happy to replace the bottle. However, if you buy wine at an auction and it's gone off, unfortunately that's just bad luck. There's no return policy, so that's just the way it is, unfortunately. Thankfully, at least in my experience, this doesn't happen too often, and this risk is something I take into account when deciding how much I'm willing to pay for a wine at an auction, which is always going to be less than how much I'd be willing to pay at a traditional wine shop or online. The second reason to not buy wine at an auction is the possibility for fake or counterfeit wine. This is thankfully not something I've personally come across, but it's something that I know happens. It's something people have been caught for and something they've been prosecuted for and criminal charges brought against them. One of the big cases of this was of Rudy Kurniawan, who in 2006 tried to sell $24.7 million worth of counterfeit wine at an auction run by Acker, Merrill and Condit. Thankfully he got caught. I mean, this was just one of the times that he tried to sell counterfeit wine. I think it's estimated there are as many as 10,000 bottles of his counterfeit wine in private cellars across the world. He was caught for a number of reasons. A number of things tipped people off in the know, and eventually the FBI. One of them was that he tried to sell wine from a top Burgundy house, Domaine Ponceau, of their Grand Cru appellation wine, Clos Saint-Denis, from vintages 1945 to 1971. But as was later confirmed by Laurent Ponceau, the head of winemaking there, they didn't make that wine until 1982. He also tried to do other things, such as sell a magnum of Chateau Petrus, one of the top wines from Bordeaux from the 1921 vintage, at a time when they weren't bottling in magnum bottles. Thankfully he was caught, but I think it would be naive to think that he's the only one out there doing it, so I'm sure there are other people doing it as well. I hope this hasn't, I don't want counterfeit or fake wine to scare you, because I think wine available at auctions can be broadly split into 2 categories. One is investor and collector wine. The second is consumer wine and wine for drinking. And I definitely fall into the latter category in terms of buying that wine. And I think at the price range I often bid at, which will be roughly £30 to £60 a bottle on average, I don't think there's the profit margins for people to start counterfeiting or faking wine. And thankfully to this day I've not been affected by counterfeit or fake wine, at least that I know of. The third reason to not buy wine at an auction is if you don't enjoy medium to full-bodied, well-matured red wines, because this is the majority of what you'll find at an auction. There are certain vintage champagnes and white wines that will age well, but yeah, the majority of wine you'll find at an auction is heavy-bodied red wines. Some white wines such as Loire Valley Chenin Blanc, German Rieslings, and some sweet wines such as Sauternes from South Bordeaux and Tokaji from Hungary do age very well, and you will find those at wine auctions. I mean, I think medium to full-bodied, well-aged red wines are absolutely phenomenal, and if you haven't tried them, I would definitely urge you to do so. However, we all have different palates and different things that we all enjoy, and if you favour light to medium-bodied wines such as Beaujolais, Barbera, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, these wines are meant to be drunk within the first few years of bottling, and for that reason wine shops, online supermarkets are always going to be the best place to buy them, and wine auctions are not the first place I advise to go and search for these type of wines. Hopefully I've given you an overview of wine auctions and some of the reasons why I think you should consider buying wine at an auction, and also some of the reasons why wine auctions may not be for you. Overall, I think wine auctions are an excellent place to buy quality, well-aged red wine at a reasonable price. In a future video I'll go into some of the tips and tricks to get the most out of wine auctions and how to avoid some of the common pitfalls. I hope you've enjoyed my video today. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more content, please subscribe and hit the bell icon for notifications. I'll also leave links to my wine blog and Instagram page below. Thank you so much for watching, and take care.